Hi, okay, so welcome to tutorial 2 on camera projection using multiple images. So in tutorial 1 we would have prepared the images in Photoshop. So here what I've done is, by the way, I've already gone through and done the majority of this tutorial. The reason I've done that is because it's no different to the previous set of tutorials I did on 2.5D. So I've got an introductory set of tutorials on 2.5D, and really we're doing exactly the same thing. So I thought rather than going through, let's just have it already set up. So what we're doing this time is we've got two separate images. So you can see here the image has been sort of cut out because we want some parallax. So parallax is the movement you get between sort of objects at different distances. Okay, so easiest way to think about that is, I don't know, you're traveling in a car at night and you're looking out at the moon, and you'll see that all the buildings or trees or whatever you're looking at through the window of your car will probably be moving quite quickly. But if you look out to the moon, it's probably just sitting in the same position. And that's because objects that are further away move less than objects that are closer to us. Okay, and so if we have a scene where we've got objects that are sort of further back and closer to us, then we want them to sort of move at different rates given their distances, and that movement is what's known as parallax. Okay, and so we're going to create that here. So what I've done is, so we've got two images. We've got a background image and we've got a foreground image. So only the background image is connected at the moment. And you can see what I've done is, if we jump to the 3D view, is I've just created that scene, okay, using cards. So again, like I said, this is exactly the same as what I did in a previous tutorial. Obviously it's a different image, but the principles are exactly the same. So have a look at that tutorial first before coming on to this. So what I'm going to do now is, so once I've got that, so here are all my cards. By the way, I used grids just like last time, just to line things up, and I've named them all, just makes it a bit easier. So normally that's what we'd do, and then we'd connect up and we'd be ready to go. In this case, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect that image. Okay, and I might just disable all of these. So I select all of these and press D for disable. So they're still connected and working, but I just don't see them. And what I would then do is connect up the foreground image, which is this. So there's actually a pillar that's going to be in front of that wall, which kind of makes sense now as to why we painted out the back of the wall. And so I'd want to do the same thing with this, create a bunch of cards. So really I'd only want a card for this side, and a third card for that, I would say would be enough. And actually I've already done that as well. So here are the grids, and again I had these disabled, so I will just connect these up first actually, so we can see these. So let's connect these up, and then I'm going to turn off the disabled. So select them and press D, and you'll see I've set up some cards for that as well. You can see this card's wider than this actual pillar, but that doesn't really matter because there's no image there, so nothing will project onto that part of the card. And if we look at this in 3D space for a second, actually, I'll tell you what, let's look at it with all of these enabled as well. So we'll turn those off too. And I know it just starts to look really confusing, but if you look at it now, you can see I've actually placed these are the new sets of cards here for the pillar. Okay, and you can see I have actually placed these cards in front of the rest of the scene as well. So they are kind of positioned in 3D space. If we jump back to our 2D view, they are actually positioned in a similar place to where they would be in the scene. Okay, so they're actually in front of it. So the parallax effect that will occur will actually be occurring in the 3D space because these objects are closer. Right, okay, so what are we going to do now? So actually we're going to do the same thing we've done in the past, which is actually once we've set this up, let's just connect these up to our project 3D and start to project the image. So I'm going to disconnect the grids because they were only used to help me align, so I'll just move them completely out of the way so they're not too confusing. And let's go back to our first image to start with. Okay, so in the past, what we've done when we've done this kind of thing is turn those on as well. I'll tell you what, and again, like I said, I'm going to just disable these pillar ones just to make things a little bit more easier for me to explain, really, no other reason. So I'm going to add in a project 3D, and like I said, this is so exactly like I said how we did it last time. And what we did is, once we started to connect up, and we'll disconnect that image from there. And what we did with the project 3D, if you remember, is it has two inputs, one for a camera and one for the image that you actually want the camera to project. I've already got a camera and things created as well because I've done that already, but it was just a duplicate of the initial camera. So I'm going to connect that up to the camera input, and I want it to project this image. And you'll see as I start to connect the cards up now, they're projecting onto these surfaces. Okay, and there we go. So like I said, this is Last time, that's all we did because we didn't have any objects in the foreground, and we were now able to move through this space. But we've got 2 images this time around. So how do we get around that? So what we're going to do is, with this one, okay, we're going to do the same thing, the second part. So we're going to disconnect those grids as well, because I don't need those. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a second project 3D node. Okay, so here we go with the second project 3D, and I'm going to connect that up to these grids, these cards. Disable that. So all I'm doing is, the only real difference between the previous use of project 3D in my other tutorials and this is that I'm using 2 project 3Ds. So I've got 2 separate projections going on. The interesting thing is you can use the same camera for both. So the same camera can act as projector. There we go. But we're not going to project this image of the background. We're going to project this image of the pillar for the other bit. And so what happens is, there we go. So now, if we look at this in 3D space, so the cards at the front that I created are having the pillar image projected onto them, and the cards at the back that I've created are having the background image projected onto them. And apart from that, you then just go through and animate just like we did in the previous tutorial, no different. So again, it is very important that you try the initial 2.5D tutorial before jumping into this one. But if we go back to here now, so why do that? Let's just have a quick look. So if we make that full screen, so I've only done it for 40 frames. Again, I've already created the animations on this just so we could move through a bit quicker. You'll see what's happening now is we're getting that parallax effect where this is actually moving over the background. Okay, so this is moving separately to the backdrop. That means it is revealing bits of the wall there that weren't there initially, which is why in Photoshop we had to paint some of the wall back in. There are ways around that. You could just rescale this pillar, make it a little bit bigger so you've got more background, and that's a good way to get around it as well. But again, like I said, so it allows you, this is just a very quick example, but it allows our camera now to move through, and it could move a lot further in or so on. But like I said, we get that parallax effect now, so it just starts to give the scene a bit more depth. You know, if I wanted to, I could do the similar thing with that. Seems a bit too static, you know, that I could have cut that out in Photoshop as well. The other side, sort of that banished a bit and just separated a little bit from the wall perhaps, so it also moves slightly differently because it does look a bit flat because it's away from the wall and you can see it's not moving at all, so that seems a bit unusual. So you know, the level of detail you go into is really what then determines how well something works. You want to figure out what bits you need to be moving and which bits don't really matter. So apart from that, what I wanted to finish off with this draw, so that's the actual thing working. But what I wanted to do with this as well is just have a look at this. It's quite messy right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the grids, to be honest, rather than leaving them disabled, because I know I don't need those anymore. But everything else here as well is like I said, I'm trying to organize it the best way I can, you know, just keeping things separate. But like I said, it can always, you know, it can get a little bit messy. So what can you do about that? So just quickly look at a couple of things to do to help us organize. Well, one of the things you can do is if you hold the control key down while you're in the node graph, you see these dots appear, okay? And you can click on any of those dots, and what you'll get is then points that you can, so it allows you to bend basically the pipe. Okay, so that's quite helpful as well. Just organizational tool, doesn't do anything else. Okay, it's not going to change anything. It just, like I said, allows us to bend that pipe a bit. But like I said, that just makes it a little bit cleaner sometimes. You know, we can pull it down. I would say the point of a node-based software, one of the things with the node-based software is it allows you to do very complex stuff. Well, even layer-based software does that, but a node-based software is designed for bigger projects, so they're easier to manage. And I would say things that can help you at least manage are things like dots that let you organize it. So if everything's just going to be a big mess, then what was the point, sort of thing, of using a node-based software? I mean, that's not the only reason, but you know, it's one of the big ones that you should be able to quickly look at your node graph and figure out what's going on. The other thing we can also do as well to help with that is if we press the tab key, we can also look up a backdrop. So I might choose to use a backdrop here, and so I'll pull that just say there, and you can stretch the backdrop out, and you'll see that anything that's in the backdrop then moves with it. Yeah, so when I move that backdrop, it moves along with it. So I'm going to need to just click on that again, so we highlight everything. Oh no, okay, I have to move them individually. So if you want to move things out, you have to kind of drag them out. So I should have really just resized my backdrop, there we go, to hold everything in the first place. But what I can do is, so I can stick those in there, and I could create another backdrop then for the other bit. Ooh, that still isn't inside properly. How about now? There we go. So yeah, like I said, just some organizational help. There we go. So we'll pop that into there with the backdrop node. There we are. So I can go into double click that, bring up its properties, let's see where the label sort of comes in. So if we call it pillar, okay, so it'll just come up there, sort of thing. So either there, or if I change that backdrop node, it'll sort of change it there. As well as that, if I want to, let's have a look. That's our font color. So we can also do things like adjust the colors. There we go. So the gray will be the backdrop color, and that will be sort of the little title bar there. So if I click on that, I should hopefully, so first we select a hue, I don't know, let's say go into the reds, and then if I pull that towards that area, there we go, so we can just make it red or something like that. I don't know, whatever helps. Probably red's not the best color now that I look at it and all the nodes are red. What was I thinking? Right, okay, so I don't know, let's make it green. I normally use green and things like that for green screen work. I find helps. So whenever I'm doing any sort of green screen, all the green screen nodes are always in a green box. So straight away, as soon as I see that, I know exactly what's in there. And we could add another backdrop node here. So none of this now, by the way, if you've seen the tutorial, is going to be about projection. That's kind of done. So as long as you're comfortable with that, that's okay. Ooh, actually, better be careful. Just doing a little bit of organizing. That's it. So I'm just going to add in another one here. Just make sure it can kind of hold all of those. There we go. Okay. And that should, yeah. So when I click on it, and so again, like I said, so very quickly, just lets me see what each one is. My 3D nodes down here, I can just stay there. But yeah, just something even as simple as that just helps me very quickly see what's going on where. Okay, and like I said, I could name that one as well. So I've called that one pillar. I'll give that one a name too, called background or so on. And then we've got our cameras and everything else, and a few use of dots. Okay, so I would recommend you do that in order to organize your own workflows and just make it simpler for yourselves. Cool. Give that a try, and I hope you enjoy the tutorial.